you can push off. Then in the next 10 days, you can work on your weaknesses. For me, it was verbal. So yeah, build up your vocabulary, verbal. And then in those 10 days also, keep working on your strong side as well, but not as frequently as this, but make
Mm-hmm.
sure it stays at the same level. And then in the next 15 days, the 5 days, you can revise all the concepts you've been through. And then at least 1 week before GRE, start practicing, giving full length tests and mock tests. That will really help.
Okay. All right. So that was Manaswin's ideal breakup as to what needs to be done in within the next 30 days if you plan to take your GRE. Right. So, all right. So I have a question here from Sai Fanindra. He asks, how many hours did you spend for GRE in the last 30 days? So maybe how many hours in a day did you spend for your GRE prep?
Yeah, excellent question. Like I said, in those first 2 months where I was just, going through the syllabus, I would spend like not too much time, half an hour to 1 hour, just complete one module, go away, thing like that. I was not studying long times. But in the last 1 month, I used to sit at least 2 hours a day, like revising when I was learning new topics, covering new syllabus. But in the last week of the prep, I was sitting anywhere about 6 to 7 hours because a full length test itself takes about 4 hours, and then reviewing that test and giving another short test so as to get yourself acquainted with the test. Yeah, the last 1 week was strenuous, about 6 to 7 hours.
Yes. All right. Okay. All right. So, all right. So I have an interesting question from Venkata. He asks, is it very hard to crack GRE? What's your opinion on that, Manaswin?
Not at all. Like, if you are from an engineering background or some analytical background as mine, quant is very easy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Quant is your elementary level mathematics. The only problem is you probably forgot those things. So just get yourself reacquainted, and time management is the only issue here.
Mm-hmm.
Just that will be covered through adequate practice, like I said. And verbal, if you're already into reading books of that sort,
Mm-hmm.
you'll already cover about a good 50 to 60% of the vocabulary needed, and then the other percentage you can get through practice again. You have to revise, read, repeat those words, try to put them in usage, so
Mm-hmm.
that yeah, you can get those.
All right. So, getting a lot of questions here from the audience. In fact, questions from all different backgrounds. So, I'm going to pick a couple of them before we proceed to the next section, right? So,
Sure.
all right. So, I have a question. I'm not able to see the name clearly, but he or she asks, what is the diagnostic score at the beginning? So, before you started your prep for GRE, you must have taken a diagnostic test, right? So, what were your scores in that test? Do you remember?
Uh, yes, I think I got something around 310 at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the diagnostic test.
Okay, so from 310, you were able to jump all the way to 326 within a month with a month's preparation, right? So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so guys, I think since most of the questions are pertaining to different sections like verbal and quant, let's jump right into the next part of this seminar, which is understanding Manaswin's GRE preparation strategy for both verbal as well as quant. Right, so let's begin with quants. So as you know, Manaswin has secured 166 in his quantitative section. So Manaswin, can you share how happy are you with the score, or do you think you could have done better?
I'm pretty satisfied with the score, but
Mm-hmm.
I think I could have done better. I think my main problem lied with time management, getting through it. Second section, I went through a little
Mm-hmm.
slowly, so that there was a bit of time crunch at the end. But yeah, overall, it's a good score.
Okay, so what were some of your challenging aspects when you prepared for quants?
Right. So Quant's main problem lied with time management, and in the time crunch, like I said initially, I was overlooking
Mm-hmm.
things. There would be a question saying not, I would overlook the nots, so I would give the opposite answer, and
Okay.
things like that.
Right.
So overlooking mistakes, that was my main problem in quant.
Okay. Okay. So basically, did you make a lot of silly mistakes while taking up your while taking the test or while
Yes,
practicing itself?
yes, that was my main problem, silly mistakes.
Okay. So where did you make most of these mistakes?
Uh, Most of these mistakes, so few calculation mistakes were there in algebra and other numerical methods. Uh,
Mhm.
but mainly I was confused with permutation combinations and probability.
Okay. Now, I guess
Mm.
silly mistakes in quants is one of the major reasons why students don't make it to that perfect 170. In fact, I'm going to ask this question to the audience here. How many of you guys, make silly mistakes when you are preparing for the GRE or even in your school days when you took up your exams? How many of you guys used to make silly mistakes? Wow, a lot of me's coming in here. Me says Sudhakar. 5 to 10% of the time says Shubham. I used to, says Yuvraj. A lot of silly mistakes is Pranav. Many says Arjan. Me says Satvik Shah. All the time says Dheeraj. A lot says Abrar. So in fact, I don't think you're the only one there, Manaswin. A lot of GRE aspirants do
Uh,
make silly mistakes. Right. So what would be your advice to these, the audience today? How can we avoid silly mistakes and make sure that we get that perfect 117 quants? What do you think?
uh, Again, practice and then review what you did wrong. Right. So
Mm,
you take a test or something with the exact same time limit and obviously the same probably level of questions, difficulty of questions. Then you might uh, make a few mistakes in that time. Then you can go back after done with the test, go back, check where you made the mistake, and then immediately
mhm.
after the test, you know the mindset you were in while you were solving the question, right? So you can understand, like, okay, this is where I went wrong. This is what I was thinking at that time. Analyze it. So compare those two things. Then obviously you can don't make that mistake again. Note down that mistake and don't make it again while solving those kinds of problems. And of course, keep all your formulas up to date. A few questions, a quick, simple formula, you might get it wrong, and that will end your question. That will get you wrong again.
Right.
So main thing is practice.
Okay. All right. So I'm getting a lot of questions here from the audience regarding your preparation for quant. So let's pick up a few questions before we move on to the next, right?
Sure, sure.
Okay, so Arjan Bedi asks, is there a breakup in the quant section? Are there topics that you should concentrate more on? Topics that have a higher frequency of appearing in the GRE?
Um, I would say keep concentration on your algebra and percentages as well, because those things can creep up into other topics as well. The
Mm,
percentages, your ratios. Yeah, if you're not strong with those, you'll face a tough time. So keep those in
okay.
mind, as well as data interpretation. You can get at least 2 to 3 questions of those. So those are easy again. Don't lose marks in it.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I hope that answers your question, Arjan. Um, okay. So Shruti Animesh asks, does the quant section include engineering mathematics?
No, it's like I said, it's elementary mathematics. It's not engineering maths.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay, so so should I not do all my questions correctly if I get an easier section for overcoming a following difficult section? Asks Dhruv.
No, absolutely not.
Mhm.
See, a bird in hand is worth two in the bush. If you're getting an easy question, solve it, right? You can worry about the tougher questions later. Just make sure you get all the questions correctly. Okay. Even in the adaptive tougher sections, there will be a few easy questions. So make sure you prioritize your questions in that order. Since you practice, you'll know which questions you face difficulty at, which questions are easier for you. So do it in that order. Go with easy, then progressively harder. That will help you save time, and also you can definitely get all your easy questions correct.
I hope that answers your question, Dhruv. So with that, let's quickly move on to the verbal section, because I'm sure that's where we have a lot of questions and a lot of students face difficulty in the verbal section. So let's quickly address your verbal preparation strategies, shall we?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. So what were some of your challenges when you were preparing for the GRE verbal?
Verbal main problem was vocabulary, shortage of vocabulary. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
TCSEs, I was, able to get like around 50 to 60 correct, but the others I just didn't know the meaning of.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't even eliminate options correctly. So that was a problem. And
Right.
other problem I faced was with reading comprehensions, especially when
Like
reading
all of us.
comprehensions contained difficult words. So that was
Uh,
tricky.
right. So that was a combination of both of your difficulties, that is long passages with words you don't understand, right?
Yes, and yes.
So how many of you guys in the audience also face difficulties like this? Like reading comprehension is just way too boring, or it's difficult to crack, get the right answers. How many of you guys share the same difficulty as Manaswin? Me says Sudhakar, Shripad, Rahul, a lot says Srilasya. Oh my God, a lot of students agree with you, when it comes to RCs, especially RC says, Sai Navina, I feel it's too difficult, says Rahul Verma, me always, says Bhavesh. So I guess we have Manaswin sharing his reading comprehension approach and how he tackled this challenge. Are you ready for that, guys? Shall we look into that? Yes, says Pranav. Yes, says Santosh, Yami, Shripad. Please, says Anchal, Janani, Rahul, Abrar, Kritika, Arvind, Srilasya. Fantastic. Let's take a look at that. So, can you tell us, how did you tackle this particular difficulty of reading comprehension? How did you approach your RC difficulties?
So first, just remember what kind of questions they might ask you. Just observe the general pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then try to ask yourself those questions, those kind of questions, in everything you read. Let it be a news article, let it be a novel, something else. Just
Mm-hmm.
try asking yourself, keep asking yourself those questions. It will be tiring at first, but then it will help you. You'll get immensely better at RCs. And then initially, while you're dealing with RCs, don't bother about the time. Just go through the passage, go through the question, try to get as many questions right as you can. All right. General 10 words, I used to get, irritated at long RC questions, especially after doing 18 or 19 of those. Then again, doing one more thing, it was really vexating. So again, you have to develop the stamina for RCs because in the exam, you have to, right? And one more thing is, again, constant practice. Uh, what you can do, again, like I said in quant, compare your mindset immediately after the exam with when you get the right explanation with what you were thinking in the exam. Then you will immediately know what you were overlooking, right? What you were overlooking or what did you understand wrongly. That will happen because sometimes you will skip things in the passages. So to avoid that, what I did was, just skim through the passage once, just to get a basic idea of the passage, so that you can navigate yourself. Then look at the question, then go to that specific part, read it again, and then if you're confident it answers your question, go with the answer. If not, read the above and below paragraph as well. It may be time consuming at first, but once you get good at it and once you know what to read, it will become faster and it is more accurate.
Right, so that was Manaswin's strategy as to how to tackle difficulties in RCs. So what were some of the common mistakes that you made when it came to RC passages, especially the long ones?
The major mistake was, just overlooking things. So I couldn't find the, exact point what he was saying in the what was asked in the question, overlooking things. And again, we have to, what do you say, interpret the passage, right? So in the interpretation part, even if you miss a little word or one sentence, you can get the answer disastrously long. So that was my main problem. Yes. The other problem was interpreting the paragraph wrongly. Sometimes that would be in a negative, I would interpret it in a positive way. And that again relates to, skipping parts of the passage.
All right. So how about we demonstrate Manaswin's approach to reading comprehension and how to keep an eye out for details through a sample paragraph. How about we do that? Are you guys ready to crack an example question together? Shall we quickly go through an example question for an RC passage? All right. Yes, says Sriram. Srilasya, that would be good, says Vibha. Yes, says Yamini, Kush, Dhruv, Philip, Santosh, Preeti. Fantastic. Let's take a quick look at a sample passage. Okay. So we'll give you a minute to 2 minutes to read through this passage. Please make sure you read through it thoroughly. And once you're done reading it, please type in done in the chat box so that we can take a look at the question associated with this passage. Okay. Once you're done with that, we can share the approach as to how to go about this passage and how to answer this question. All right, so here goes. Here is the passage on your screen right now. Quickly take about 2 minutes to read this passage and let us know when you're done by typing in done in the chat box. All right, so I guess some of you have started typing in done. That means you're done reading the passage. So done says Ashna, done says Aniket, Harshal, Shruti, Santosh, Mahadev, Srilasya, Yami, Deepak. Okay, I'm just going to leave it on for just about roughly another 30 seconds and we'll look at the question. Okay, so seems like a lot of you guys are done. Let's quickly take a look at a question and try answering this yourself, guys. Okay. Here's a question pertaining to the passage that you just read. Can you look at the options and tell us which of these is the best suitable answer? Wonderful. So we've started receiving responses here. Great. So D says Ahmar, D says Shashank, D says Harshal. A says Janani. Option E says Shinjani. Option D says Manish Mahadev. Option A says Rahul Wasnik. E says Nisha Makone. E says Sairam. D says Rahul Verma. A says Kritika. First option, A says Shatrughna. All right, so a lot of mixed responses here. I guess it's time for us to find out. So, Manaswin, can you tell us which of the options is the correct answer?
I think the correct answer is option A.
Okay, all right. So why is this the correct answer?
2, 3, and 4. So if you go back to the passage.
Shall I go back to the passage?
Yes, yes. Just
okay. Yeah.
So in the first paragraph, you can clearly see that the northeastern states have rich biodiversity, and they're not being, used for the growth of that region. Instead, they're being, taken away to some other parts, and so biopiracy is prevalent over there. And then the second paragraph justifies that. How that is happening. You can see in the third paragraph, you will get the actual factors of why it is happening, right? Rapid development of, rapid development, biotechnology, increasing demand for medicinal plants and economic benefits. So I think majority of you put D, right? So you skip that.
A lot of people did choose D. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a mistake I made the first time. So you didn't select that the unfair global patent regime, right? So in third paragraph, you can clearly see that the importance will include rapid developments in biotechnology and increasing demand for medicinal plants and the economic benefits promised by the global patent regime, right? The global patent regime is mentioned there, and then it also goes to say that the global patent regime also rewards only the people who are using it, currently possessing and using it for therapeutic or some other purposes in the last line of that paragraph, right? So that has to be interpreted. You probably overlooked that point, so that's where you went wrong.
Okay, all right. So, yay, I got it right, says Rahul. I got it right, says Sairam. So keep it up, guys, who got it right, and you've chosen option E, like Chirag and Preeti and Shrikant and so on. For those of you guys, a majority of you did choose option D. I hope now you realize how you missed that tiny detail that kind of misdirected you, but I hope now you understand the explanation for that answer. Right, so a couple of things before we move on to the next section, which is vocabulary. Now, Manaswin, can you share your reading comprehension strategy? How would you read this passage, and how much time would you spend on a passage of this length?
This length, there probably would be 3 to 4 questions on it, so I'd spend a good minute and a half, 2 minutes in some cases if I have the time. And just once read through the passage, get an idea of what it is talking about. Remember the main points, the tone of the passage, and then go to the question. Check in this question they gave a few statements, and check if those statements are mentioned in this paragraph, right? So the first option was obviously some political instability. It was not mentioned here, so you can just discard it. The second, the global patent regime was mentioned, and then the other two options, lack of comprehensive knowledge. The other two options were also mentioned. So go back to the passage and check if the tone if this argument regarding those factors is true or not. Right. Since you read through the passage once, you will have an idea of what is where. So go back to the passage, and then you can find your answers.
Okay. So how would you go about identifying the main idea of the passage?
Identifying the main idea, just in the opening sentence, the author talks about not exploiting Northeast's richness in biodiversity and all. So just find that main idea, that is biodiversity, and then he goes on to say it is not being used, right? And then he goes about biopiracy, right? Because that region's resources are not used for the benefit of that region, but they're shipped off to some other regions illegally. Right? And then he goes on, gives examples. The main idea is, which is, repeated when the author states something and then provides examples for it, examples or some other reasoning for it. That is how you identify a main idea, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So we have a question from Chetan Balaji. So Chetan asks, the first thing I do before starting reading the RC, I read the questions first. Okay, so is that correct? What do you suggest?
Depends on you, but I would say just go through the passage once, because once you go quickly through the questions and come back to the passage, you might not remember what the questions are asking, right? You might not know where to look in the passage, but once you read the passage, you get the main gist of it, right? You get the idea, so you know where to look once you see the question.
Right. Okay. I hope that answers your question, Chetan. Now I have a question for you, Manaswin. So when you made mistakes, when you chose the wrong options, right? How did the SFA's feedback help you to understand where you're making a mistake in RC?
Yes. So the SFAs gave a complete explanation for why this question had this answer and why not the other one, right? So once you get that, like I said, compare it to your earlier mindset when you were doing that question in the test, right? Comparing both of those, you will know exactly where you went wrong, exactly what you were thinking at that moment instead of what should have been thinking. That helped. And again, they also say that you pour in your vocabulary, or you're skipping this, you probably skip this. So yeah, they also give you probable causes of your mistakes. That helped.
All right, all right. So now before we move on to the next section, which is GRE vocabulary, I'd like to ask a question to the audience. Now, how many of you guys are targeting a score just like Manaswin here? Me says Rahul, me says Preeti, Sudhakaran, of course says Bhavesh, me a bit more says Shruti, everybody says Shripad, right? Okay, I was aiming for a 330 says Sudhakar, of course says Kritika, me says Saurabh Patil. All right, I'm glad to see a lot of you guys inspired by Manaswin's journey to a 320 plus in GRE. All right, now for those of you guys who are all set to get started with the GRE preparation, then I'd love to, ensure that we give you the best possible support from GRE Edge. We'd love to help you in any step of the way if you are planning to get started with the GRE preparation. So let us know in what way GRE Edge could be of assistance in your GRE and admissions journey. So I'm just opening up a poll here. You can let us know what is it that we can help you with. Be it GRE preparation, admissions counseling and TOEFL, or even if you want to talk to our student counselors to discuss your GRE preparation worries and your problems, and get an idea as to how to take your GRE preparation forward, I can ensure that you get a call from our student counselors as well. All right, so I can see a lot of you guys interested in our GRE preparation program. So if you guys want to get started at the earliest, then I can share a link with you all in private if you type in me in the chat box, and that will take you to a link that will help you avail special discounts on our premium programs, and can also talk to our student counselors to discuss how to take your GRE preparation forward. Right, so for those of you guys who want to get started with your GRE prep at the earliest, you can quickly type in me in the chat box and let me know. Okay, I'm just sharing the link with all of you. Santosh, Ayan, Dhruv, I'm just copying the link to all those who have typed in me in the chat box. Now, all you have to do is copy paste this link onto your favorite browser, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, or Internet Explorer, and type in your name, your email ID, and your contact number. You can take a couple of minutes to do that while Manaswin and I get a 2-minute break. You can type in the details, and once you're done, you can type in done in the chat box and let me know. Okay. Right, I guess a lot of you guys have typed in me here, so I'm just going to share the link with all of you at once. Now, some of you guys are also requesting for the ebook link, so I'll be sharing that as well in a minute. Yes, Vamsi, I have shared the link with you. Yeah, just give me a second. I will share the ebook link with you as well. Give me a minute. Ahmad, you can enroll just for quant practice tests. You can just discuss the same with the GRE student counselor, and they'll guide you to the right program. Yes, I've shared the ebook link with you all as well. So once you're ready, we can proceed with the next section, which is GRE vocabulary. And we'll also pick up some questions that we haven't been able to discuss so far. Now, some of you guys have told me that you're not able to access, or you're not able to copy the link. Now, that could be because you are online through your mobile phones. So if you are interested, if you want to receive this link, then I can ask my team to send you a link quickly as an SMS so that you can copy and send in your details, right? So we'll quickly send a link if you if you want the link as an SMS. Okay, yes, says Latif, Sri Lasya, Arjan. Send as an SMS, please, says Charu. All right, then give me a minute. I will definitely ensure that you receive an SMS shortly. Okay, so let me know when you're ready to proceed to the next section. Type in done in the chat box and let me know so that we can move on to the vocabulary and Q&A session. Okay, I hope you guys have received the ebook link. I guess Minali has mentioned that you're not able to open the link. If you're still finding trouble opening the ebook, let me know. I will send it to you right now. Okay, so I just received a notification from my team. They will be sending the SMS for those of you guys who have requested for the SMS. You can respond to that when you receive the SMS, right? So quickly let me know if you're ready to proceed to the next part of the seminar, guys. Don't worry, Chitanjan, you'll be receiving it shortly. Give it a 10 to 15 minutes. They will be sending it to you shortly, right? Okay, right. Charu says thanks for the SMS. Okay, great. Anytime, Charu. Okay, great. So let's move on to the next section, shall we? Let's discuss Manaswin's GRE vocabulary strategy. Now, can you share with us, how did you prepare for GRE vocabulary, Manaswin? How many words did you study for the GRE? Yeah, let's start with that first.
I don't remember the exact amount of words. I think it was around 1,000, around 800, 900 probably. So the main thing is repetitive use, or once you learn a word, just try to spot it out in any other situation you can, or see if you can include that word in some of your day-to-day conversations. Right? You're reading something, you learned a word, right? You see it, then try to spot it out, get its meaning. Or you're talking to somebody, there's in some situation you think that word is appropriate. Try always, it's a constant practice, right? So just try to use those words as much as you can. Or I mean, I'm not saying use them in actual life, but just even if you don't talk to your friends like that, in back of your mind, just we can use this word in this place, right? So do that. That will be really helpful. And again, go through the words frequently. Like today you read few, tomorrow you read a few, so that tomorrow again you revise these things so that you won't forget this.
All right, so you ended up studying about 1,000 words in 30 days, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a question from the audience. How many words per day can we study for good preparation?
That depends on person to person, right? For me, I used to do, I don't know, about, there were days where I did 30, when there were days when I did 150. So, like I said, depends on your mood, depends on your person. But again, however many you do, make sure you remember them. Make sure you keep them in your mind, because it's not possible to cover all the words in the English language. So, whatever you have gone through, whatever you have encountered, keep them in your mind, remember them, do not forget them.
Okay. What were some of the techniques you used to remember the GRE words?
Like I said, frequent practice and frequent application, and the GRH word bot app helped here as well. They give, a visual representation of every word, so that helps. Whenever you see that kind of a situation in real life, you instinctively remember that word. So a graphical representation also helps.
Yeah. So do you remember any word that you remember because of the picture? Any word that comes to your mind?
Yes, in fact, it's foment, FOMENT. It's actually
Okay.
one of the first words I've seen on WordBot.
Mm-hmm.
It means to, do violent things instead of any violent activities, violence basically. So
Okay.
that was a picture of, angry crowd or a mob. So that won't go out of your mind easily. I
Mm-hmm.
remember that.
Okay. All right. So I've just shared a link to the GRE Edge WordBot if you'd like to give it a go. So this is the trial version that you can access, and you can see what it's like to learn with a visual representation along with the word, right? So okay, Yamini asks us if there's a mobile version of the WordBot. Well, currently it's a desktop application. We're getting our mobile app ready very, very shortly. Maybe in the next couple of weeks to a month, you should be able to access it on Play Store. Right. So now we can officially move on to the Q&A session. If you have any other exclusive questions that we haven't addressed so far, then please let me know immediately. We'll pass that on to our guest here. We have some time before we end today's online seminar. Right, so I have a question here from Subhashini. What did you do during the last 10 days of the test date?
I've told it in the start of the seminar. The last 1 week leading up to the test, I was continuously solving, mock tests. I was giving mock tests. So a typical day would be in the morning. My exam was scheduled around at 8:30. So I would start at the same time, give a mock test, full length test, then take an hour, have lunch or something, and then in the evening again do a GRE style test of whatever I did bad the day. And suppose verbal went badly that day, I would do verbal sample test in the evening, and if I encountered any words I didn't know in the test, I would note them down, refer to them, and then go back again.
All right, so I hope that answers your question, Subhashini. How do you work around the time problem for lengthy sums? Asks Ritesh Sawant.
Yes, so during your prep, you will get a basic idea of which takes longer, which problem takes lesser time. So in your test, since there is an option to move around questions, you can just go with the easier questions first. Things that take minimal time are very easy. You just go with them first, solve them, put a correct answer, and then come back to the later ones. Because even if you take more time with this question, the question that takes a longer while, you have enough time and you did every other question correctly, so that you can spend time here. There is nothing running out. That is what I would do.
All right. Right. So Yamini asks, was GREH enough for the preparation, or was extra preparation needed?
No, GREH was pretty sufficient.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
They had all the materials I needed, not condensed into a case, and they also have ample mock tests. So, yeah, I felt that that was sufficient.
All right. So I have a question here from. Okay, I'm not able to see the name here, but I'll still pass on your question. Is there any strategy to crack sentence equivalence questions if you don't know exactly the meaning of the words in the options?
Obviously, you have an elimination option, right? So you probably will know at least a few of those words. So the words which, if not all, you'll probably know a few. If you do know the exact word, then all is good. You can put those words exactly. If you do not know, what words apply into that blank, then use your common sense actually. Just weed out those answers which are obviously not appropriate, and then you can work backwards.
Okay. All right. So I hope that answers your question. All right. So Aditya has a question here. How do we have to manage time on sums which involves a lot of decimals and need to use on-screen calculator?
Use the on-screen calculator. That is, it's a simple app. So even they are ETS is a very intelligent organization. So even when you find a lot of decimal places, there'll usually be a couple of numerical tricks. Sometimes converting those into fractions will help, or it may be a straightforward question. So just go through those questions. It depends on the question, but if you have to use the calculator, make sure you use it, because it's a simple simple to use calculator, and there's a number pad on the keyboard at the test center. So it can be done. Yeah.
Okay. Now I have a question here from Bhuvana. Bhuvana Rajeshwari asks, what did you do to prepare for analytical writing sessions? So I guess that's the only thing we haven't touched upon so far. So can you share some insight on that, Manaswin?
Yes, definitely. Analytical writing is definitely a little harder than what you think it would be. For me, it was. So I started analytical writing about when I started my full-length test. So the first time it was absolutely disastrous. The half an hour was not sufficient at all, and I did not address the problem very well. So what I did was, go back, know what I should have done in the first place, what I should do in analytical writing, what that section requires, know those requirements very well. It's an issue, you analyze it, you give an opinion of what the author says, what the passage is talking about, whether you agree with it or not, give a lot of examples for both sides. If it's an argument, take it apart piece by piece. Why is it true? Why it is not true? Is the evidence sufficient to support the argument? You need to do those things. And then one more thing that would help is, look at samples. Look at a lot of samples so that you'll get a general idea of what you were supposed to write, but what did you write? So you'll know where you're falling short of, so that you can cover it in the next session.
Okay. So Andy asks, how many mock tests did you take before appearing for the exam? And what was your average score in your mock tests?
I probably took around 7 to 8 full-length tests. And yeah, I scored pretty much around the mark that I actually secured in the exam. Initially in the mock test, so there were less, but finally the last 2-3 tests results were stabilized around the mark I got, around 325 to 27 to 28, so on.
Okay, all right. So I hope that answers your question, Andy. Adarsh Srivastav asks, what are the few questions that can be generally expected in any RC, and is there any special trick to solve them?
One thing that stands out is, pick out a line of the passage that proves the author's argument, or where the author gives an example, or what is the main idea of the passage. Picking those lines out, that might be difficult at first, but again, once you practice, you need to compare paragraphs with each other, right? So once you go through the options, you'll know what lines are actually the paragraphs, and then you can compare this with the question. Yeah.
All right. So I hope that answers your question, Adarsh. All right, so Aditya asks, is there a necessity to use high-level vocabulary in analytical writing? What do you suggest?
No, no, no. Just don't go that high. You don't need a too good of vocabulary there. You just need to know. You just need to show the people that you can, understand the concept that is discussed properly. You can, form an opinion. You can state your opinion clearly, and you can give examples to support your opinion. That's all analytical writing is about. You don't need to use very high vocabulary.
Okay. So with that, I guess we kind of come to the end of the seminar. So before we close, Manaswin, do you have any special tips to share for students who are, planning to go for fall 2019? What would be your advice? People yet to take their GRE for fall 19.
Yes, like I said in the first part, make sure you know what your strengths and your weaknesses are, because that is really important. And make your strengths your concrete base of support, right? You need to be able to push off that, because that is what saves you at the end of the day. You're not going to, because the time is limited, you'll not be able to put that much of practice, and you need to know in which areas you need to practice. So identifying your strengths and weaknesses is the most crucial element of your prep. Do it, and then spend a little bit of time making your strengths bulletproof. Small holes here and there, fill it up, get your knowledge right, practice if you need it, and then go to your weaknesses, focus on them, bring them up as much as possible, but keep an eye on your strengths all the time. Maintain it, make sure they're at the same level, and again practice. Give tests before your GRE, so that you'll get acquainted to you'll be expecting what is there. You'll not be caught off guard.
Okay. All right. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of the seminar, since it's already 8 o'clock, and it's about time that we wrap up today's online seminar. So thank you so much, Manaswin, for joining us today and sharing a lot of valuable insights from your preparation journey, and also addressing a lot of pressing questions from the audience's side. So guys, let us know how did you find today's online seminar, and if there's any feedback you'd like to give us, please let us know in the chat box, and I'd love to pass that on to my team and work on the same. Right. So until next time, this is Donna David and Manaswin signing off. A very good evening and all the very best. Thank you, Manaswin. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Donna.